They came before sunrise, 3 figures in cheap uniforms pounding on my front door as if the world were ending. At first I thought I was dreaming. The neighborhood of Everwood Hills was supposed to be peaceful, the kind of place where people jog at 6 a.m. and argue about lawn edges, not stage police raids. But when I looked through the peephole and saw the letters HOA Police taped across their plastic vests, I knew something was off. I'd moved to Everwood Hills only 6 weeks earlier. After 10 years in the Bureau, Cybercrimes Division, I needed calm, quiet, and a place where I could pretend the world didn't run on secrets. The cul-de-sac I chose had maple trees, tidy lawns, and neighbors who waved with coffee mugs in hand. The HOA promised community harmony. They didn't mention the patrol cars. At first, I ignored the rumors. People said the HOA had started a safety initiative. Volunteers in reflective vests who kept an eye on suspicious activity. It sounded harmless enough, until one of those volunteers tried to fine me $50 for parking my car backward in my own driveway. I paid it, thinking it would buy peace. I was wrong. The pounding grew louder. "Mr. Cole, open up! We're conducting an inspection." My clock read 5:47 a.m. The sun hadn't even touched the roofs yet. I opened the door halfway, keeping the chain lock on. 3 people stood there, one tall man with mirrored sunglasses, a short woman clutching a clipboard, and a third standing slightly behind them with a phone camera pointed at my porch. Their uniforms looked like Halloween costumes, navy shirts with iron-on badges and cheap walkie-talkies. Inspection for what? I asked. Violations of community security standards? The woman said briskly. We received reports of unregistered equipment in your garage. I almost laughed. Unregistered equipment? The tall man crossed his arms. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. I studied his badge. Plastic, edges peeling. My FBI instincts kicked in. These badges fake? I asked calmly. He smirked. You're welcome to test them, sir. Step aside. No warrant, no entry. That was when I saw movement across the street. Mrs. Turner. The self-proclaimed HOA president, standing on her porch with a phone, filming everything with a smile that said checkmate. I kept my tone measured. Mrs. Turner, maybe you can explain what this is. She stepped closer, still recording. Good morning, Ryan. We had complaints about noise coming from your property after midnight. The HOA police are just following up. HOA police? I repeated. She nodded proudly. A new program. Authorized under Bylaw 14B, I frowned. There is no 14B. Her smile didn't fade. There is now. The tall officer produced a sheet of paper with Notice of Inspection typed in bold. No seal, no signature, only my name in the wrong font. This isn't legal, I said. The woman stepped forward. Refusing inspection is an additional violation. Please cooperate. My voice dropped an octave. I work for the FBI. If you step past this door, you'll be explaining yourselves to real law enforcement. For the first time, they hesitated. Mrs. Turner's smile flickered, but only for a second. Well, she said smoothly, we all need to follow rules, even federal agents. After a tense standoff, they left. But not before the cameraman took a final shot of my house and muttered, He'll be written up. I watched them walk down the street, my pulse pounding. Something told me this wasn't over. Half an hour later, a letter slid under my door. Notice of conduct violation, level 3. Offense failure to cooperate with HOA authorities. Immediate hearing required. No address, No official seal. I stared at the paper, then at the small drone hovering above the cul-de-sac. Someone was watching. At 9 a.m., I drove to the actual HOA office, a rented suite above a bakery downtown. The receptionist blinked when I showed her the notice. "We don't have an enforcement department," she said, confused. "Just volunteers who handle landscaping and budgets." "Does the name Mrs. Turner ring a bell?" I asked. Her eyes widened. "Oh, she used to be on the board, but she resigned 2 years ago. Something about fund mismanagement. That was it. She'd been ousted, and now she'd built her own shadow HOA. That night, while reviewing neighborhood footage from my own security system, I noticed something strange. Every few minutes, my camera feed glitched, frames replaced by static, as if someone was intercepting the signal. I opened my laptop and traced the packets. The data was being rerouted through an unsecured Wi-Fi node labeled HOA Secure. They were hacking residents, cameras. I followed the digital trail to a local IP address, registered to Turner Residential Consulting. When I clicked deeper, I found dozens of live camera feeds, people's driveways, porches, even interior glimpses through windows. A chill ran through me. Everwood Hills wasn't just a nosy neighborhood. It was a controlled environment. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. A male voice said, "Agent Cole, stop digging." Then silence. The line went dead before I could trace it. The next morning, at the Bureau's local field office, my supervisor, Agent Porter, called me in. He held up a thin folder. "Got a complaint from local authorities about you intimidating community members." I froze. "You mean the fake HOA?" He frowned. "They provided video evidence. You arguing with 3 officers in front of your house?" My stomach turned cold. "Mrs. Turner's video." "Ryan," he said softly, "take some time off. I'll look into it." I nodded. But inside, I was already planning my next move. That evening, while walking to my mailbox, Mr. Holt, the retired math teacher who lived 2 doors down, waved me over. "I saw what happened," he whispered. "You're not the first." "What do you mean?" "They came for me last month. Said my garden shed violated code. Took pictures, threatened fines. I paid them $300 to leave me alone." "Did you report it?" He shook his head. "They said if I did, they'd make sure my insurance was canceled." Fear. Classic control tactic. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did the right thing telling me, but stay quiet for now." 3 nights later, they came again. This time, their fake cruiser blocked my driveway. Red and blue lights flashed from a cheap LED bar. I opened the door before they could knock. The tall man smiled. "Evening, Mr. Cole. You missed your hearing." I was busy doing my actual job. He leaned closer. "You think that badge makes you untouchable?" "I think impersonating an officer makes you arrestable." Behind him, the woman lifted her phone, recording again. "Everything's being documented," she said. "Good," I replied. Evidence always helps in court. They stiffened, then backed away. But not before leaving another notice on my door. By midnight, my inbox was flooded with anonymous emails, photos of me in my yard, captions like, "Agent Cole violates curfew rules. Someone wanted me fired. I sent the data to a trusted contact at CyberOps for analysis." Within minutes, she replied, "These images were edited. Timestamps don't match. Someone's spoofing your security feed." I rubbed my temples. They weren't just watching me. They were creating evidence against me. At 2 a.m., I heard a car door slam. Through the window, I saw 2 figures approaching again. Same cheap uniforms. Same flashlight beam sweeping across my garage. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and stepped outside quietly. When the light swung toward me, the taller man froze. He was wearing an earpiece this time. And as I listened closely, I heard a female voice through the static. Make him submit. Orders from the director. Director. Of what? My heart stopped. They weren't just rogue neighbors anymore. The next morning started too quiet. No barking dogs, no leaf blowers, not even kids heading to school. Just the hum of tension, thick as smoke. I sat at my kitchen counter, half drinking cold coffee, replaying last night's message in my mind. We know who you are. It was meant to rattle me. It worked. By 9 a.m., I was already on the phone with Alvarez, the local cop I trusted. The HOA goons were back, I told him. He exhaled sharply. You need to get real evidence, not just your word against theirs. Start recording them if they show up again. I promised I would. But before hanging up, he added something that made my pulse spike. Agent, I ran that cruiser plate you gave me. I leaned forward, heart thudding. And? It's registered to a private company out of Nevada. No state authorization. No security credentials. Just a shell firm. I rubbed my temple. So they're operating illegally? Completely, Alvarez said. But that's not the weird part. Guess who signed the permit application for that company? Who? He paused. A woman named Karen Holbrook. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Karen, my HOA neighbor, was running a fake police force through a shell company. That realization burned through my brain like fire. I hung up without another word and stared out my kitchen window. Across the street, Karen was pruning her rose bushes, humming like she didn't have a care in the world. But now I saw her differently, not as a nosy neighbor, but as a woman who'd built an empire of control under everyone's nose. That afternoon, I checked my mailbox. Inside was a thick envelope stamped Urgent Show on Notice. Opening it, I found a citation for failure to comply with Community Code Section 19A, unauthorized signage. What signage? I didn't even have a sign. At the bottom, the signature Officer L. Travis, HOA Enforcement Division. It looked official. Seal, badge logo, everything. But Alvarez was right. This wasn't a real department. This was a performance, a show designed to make everyone believe Karen's illusion. Still, something about the seal nagged at me. I grabbed a magnifying glass from my desk drawer and examined it closely. The logo was identical to one used by a defunct homeowner's insurance company, probably stolen. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Keep ignoring the HOA and we'll escalate this to your employer. You've been warned. My stomach flipped. They weren't bluffing. They knew I worked for the Bureau by the time I reached the FBI office. My nerves were shredded. The front desk agent, a rookie named Henley, glanced at me oddly. Morning, sir, he said. The deputy assistant director's been asking about you. My pulse jumped. Why? He shrugged awkwardly. Something about behavioral concerns? I didn't ask questions. Inside my supervisor's office, the air was colder than usual. He sat stiffly, holding a file, my file. Close the door, agent, he said. I obeyed. He slid the file toward me. Inside were several printed complaints, each signed by HOA enforcement officials. They claimed I'd threatened community safety, resisted local authority, and harassed neighborhood representatives. My jaw tightened. Sir, these are fake. The HOA officers aren't even real. They're run by Karen Holbrook, my neighbor. It's a scam. He leaned back, skeptical. A scam involving uniformed personnel and official paperwork? Yes, I said firmly. They're impersonating law enforcement. He studied me for a moment, then sighed. Even if that's true, perception matters. If these complaints keep stacking up, Internal Affairs will have to investigate you, and I won't be able to stop them. I stared at him, disbelief turning into dread. Karen had managed to turn my own agency against me, or at least plant the seed. That night, I installed a motion camera near my porch. By midnight, I was half asleep on the couch when the alert chimed on my phone. Someone was outside. I checked the feed. 2 figures in dark jackets stood on my lawn. Their badges glinted in the porch light. One of them pointed a flashlight directly at my security camera. Blinding the feed. Not this time, I muttered. Grabbing my phone and hitting record from a secondary camera I'd hidden behind the window frame. Then came the knock. 3 loud, deliberate raps on the door. I stepped forward, careful but firm. Identify yourself. A man's voice responded, low and authoritative. HOA Enforcement Division. Open up! Not without a warrant. He chuckled, a cruel, knowing sound. This isn't about warrants. It's about compliance. I stayed silent. The man tried again. You're obstructing an official inspection. Finally, I shouted through the door. Impersonating a federal officer carries a 10-year sentence. Silence. Then footsteps retreating. The men climbed back into their black SUV and drove off. I exhaled shakily, adrenaline pounding through my veins. But when I checked the camera feed again, I saw something that froze my blood. Before leaving, one of them had taped a single sheet of paper to my front door. I walked out cautiously to grab it. The paper read, "You're being watched. Stop interfering." And below that, a blurry photo of me standing in my FBI jacket, taken from outside my office windows. By the next morning, sleep deprivation had twisted everything into paranoia. I checked my rearview mirror every few seconds while driving to work. Every car behind me looked suspicious. Every glance from a coworker felt loaded. At the office, I noticed something worse. Whispers. Colleagues avoiding eye contact. And in the break room, Agent Davis quietly pulled me aside. "Hey, man, word's going around that you're under review. Someone's been feeding IA a lot of dirt on you." My voice dropped. "Karen," he frowned. "Who?" "My neighbor. She's behind everything. The fake cops, the citations, the harassment." Davis gave me a wary look. "Then she's good at it, real good. They think you've gone off the rails. That hit like a punch to the gut. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I spotted Karen walking her dog down the street. Same calm smile, same smug air of control. I walked straight toward her. "We need to talk." She looked at me like I was an annoyance. "About what, Agent?" "You know what?" I snapped. "The fake officers, the shell company, the complaints you sent to my office." Her smile never faltered. "You think I'm behind your little meltdown? That's adorable." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You're crossing lines you don't understand." She tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "Maybe, or maybe you're just not as untouchable as you think." Then she leaned in, her voice a whisper. "The HOA has eyes everywhere." For the next few days, I lived on caffeine and nerves. Every knock, every phone buzz, every passing car felt like another threat. Karen's smug face lingered in my head like a bad dream. But what truly haunted me was how easily she had flipped my reality. Neighbors whispering. My FBI colleagues watching me like I was the one losing it. Something had to give. On Thursday, I got called into the assistant director's office. The kind of meeting that never ends well. He didn't even look up when I entered. Just pointed at the chair across from his desk. "Agent Carter," he said flatly, "do you know why you're here?" I swallowed. "I assume it's about the complaints." He finally looked up. Tired eyes, heavy lines on his face. "We received multiple reports from your neighborhood. Claims of intimidation, unauthorized surveillance, and threats. Are you aware you've been accused of harassing local enforcement?" I almost laughed. "They're not local enforcement. They're imposters." He leaned back. "Then where's your proof?" My mouth went dry. "I have recordings, footage, fake citations." He cut me off. "You have theories, Agent, and until those theories become verified facts, you're putting the Bureau's reputation at risk." It was like a punch to the chest. "Sir," I said, struggling to keep my voice level, "I'm being targeted. This isn't paranoia. My neighbor's running an entire fake police unit. She's connected to a private security firm out of Nevada." He didn't flinch. "Then prove it. Until then, you're on administrative review." My stomach dropped. "You're benching me?" He sighed. "Not officially. But you'll stay out of field work until this is resolved." The meeting ended there. No handshake, no sympathy. Just a silent reminder that in the FBI, perception was power. And mine was gone. That night, my street looked different. The once friendly block had turned cold and empty. Curtains twitched as I drove by. Mailboxes that used to hold flyers for bake sales now held HOA enforcement notices. Karen had poisoned everything. When I stepped out of my car, I noticed something new. A black sedan parked 3 houses down. Same tinted windows. Same silent watcher. I raised my phone to take a picture, but the engine started instantly. The car sped off into the night. Inside my house, the phone rang. A blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. "Agent Carter," a distorted voice said. "We warned you to stop." "Who is this?" Static. Then, "Last chance." Click. I stood frozen, the dial tone echoing in my ear. The next day, I met with Alvarez at a diner outside town. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. "I traced the private security firm," he said, sipping his coffee. "Name's Haven Line Solutions. No license in this state. But here's the kicker." He slid a paper across the table. The CEO's name read Lydia Holbrook, Karen's sister. I let out a low whistle. "So this whole operation's a family business." "Looks that way," Alvarez said. "They've been setting up similar community patrols across other neighborhoods, all under fake HOA contracts. Quiet money grab." I shook my head. "And the FBI doesn't see it." He grimaced. "That's because they're not looking for it. You're a federal agent. They assume you're the problem, not the victim." "She's playing the optics." I clenched my fists. "Then I'll play dirtier." He raised a brow. "You sure about that?" "You're already under review." I smirked grimly. "If I'm going down, I'm taking her empire with me." That weekend, I noticed new flyers posted on every streetlight. Community safety meeting hosted by HOA Enforcement Division. Location, Karen Holbrook's residence attendance, mandatory. She was escalating, pulling the whole neighborhood deeper into her grip. When I walked past her house later that night, I saw at least 5 people inside through the curtains. She was giving a presentation, slides, charts, uniforms. A full-blown indoctrination session. "Hey, man, word's going around that you're under review. Someone's been feeding IA a lot of dirt on you." My voice dropped. "Karen," he frowned. "Who?" "My neighbor. She's behind everything. The fake cops, the citations, the harassment." Davis gave me a wary look. Then she's good at it, real good. They think you've gone off the rails. That hit like a punch to the gut. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I spotted Karen walking her dog down the street. Same calm smile, same smug air of control. I walked straight toward her. "We need to talk." She looked at me like I was an annoyance. "About what, Agent?" "You know what?" I snapped. "The fake officers. The shell company. The complaints you sent to my office." Her smile never faltered. "You think I'm behind your little meltdown?" "That's adorable." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You're crossing lines you don't understand." She tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "Maybe, or maybe you're just not as untouchable as you think." Then she leaned in, her voice a whisper. "The HOA has eyes everywhere." For the next few days, I lived on caffeine and nerves. Every knock, every phone buzz, every passing car felt like another threat. Karen's smug face lingered in my head like a bad dream. But what truly haunted me was how easily she had flipped my reality. Neighbors whispering. My FBI colleagues watching me like I was the one losing it. Something had to give. On Thursday, I got called into the assistant director's office. The kind of meeting that never ends well. He didn't even look up when I entered. Just pointed at the chair across from his desk. "Agent Carter," he said flatly, "do you know why you're here?" I swallowed. "I assume it's about the complaints." He finally looked up. Tired eyes, heavy lines on his face. "We received multiple reports from your neighborhood. Claims of intimidation, unauthorized surveillance, and threats. Are you aware you've been accused of harassing local enforcement?" I almost laughed. "They're not local enforcement. They're imposters." He leaned back. "Then where's your proof?" My mouth went dry. "I have recordings, footage, fake citations." He cut me off. "You have theories, Agent, and until those theories become verified facts, you're putting the Bureau's reputation at risk." It was like a punch to the chest. "Sir," I said, struggling to keep my voice level, "I'm being targeted. This isn't paranoia. My neighbor's running an entire fake police unit. She's connected to a private security firm out of Nevada." He didn't flinch. "Then prove it. Until then, you're on administrative review." My stomach dropped. "You're benching me?" He sighed. "Not officially. But you'll stay out of field work until this is resolved." The meeting ended there. No handshake, no sympathy. Just a silent reminder that in the FBI, perception was power. And mine was gone. That night, my street looked different. The once friendly block had turned cold and empty. Curtains twitched as I drove by. Mailboxes that used to hold flyers for bake sales now held HOA enforcement notices. Karen had poisoned everything. When I stepped out of my car, I noticed something new. A black sedan parked 3 houses down. Same tinted windows. Same silent watcher. I raised my phone to take a picture, but the engine started instantly. The car sped off into the night. Inside my house, the phone rang. A blocked number. I hesitated, then answered. "Agent Carter," a distorted voice said. "We warned you to stop." "Who is this?" Static. Then, "Last chance." Click. I stood frozen, the dial tone echoing in my ear. The next day, I met with Alvarez at a diner outside town. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. "I traced the private security firm," he said, sipping his coffee. "Name's Haven Line Solutions. No license in this state. But here's the kicker." He slid a paper across the table. The CEO's name read Lydia Holbrook, Karen's sister. I let out a low whistle. So this whole operation's a family business. Looks that way, Alvarez said. They've been setting up similar community patrols across other neighborhoods, all under fake HOA contracts. Quiet money grab. I shook my head. And the FBI doesn't see it. He grimaced. That's because they're not looking for it. You're a federal agent. They assume you're the problem, not the victim. She's playing the optics. I clenched my fists. Then I'll play dirtier. He raised a brow. You sure about that? You're already under review. I smirked grimly. If I'm going down, I'm taking her empire with me. That weekend, I noticed new flyers posted on every streetlight. Community safety meeting hosted by HOA Enforcement Division. Location, Karen Holbrook's residence attendance, mandatory. She was escalating, pulling the whole neighborhood deeper into her grip. When I walked past her house later that night, I saw at least 5 people inside through the curtains. She was giving a presentation, slides, charts, uniforms. A full-blown indoctrination session. I recorded it from across the street. My camera caught glimpses of fake badges, maps of the neighborhood marked with red X's, including my property. That was it. The line had been crossed. I sent the footage to Alvarez, labeling it Evidence Number 1. Within minutes, he replied, Got it. But she's well connected. You'll need more. The next morning, I walked into the bureau ready to push back. But as soon as I entered the lobby, I felt eyes on me. Every conversation stopped. Every agent turned quiet. Then my boss appeared. Carter, my office, now. Inside, he held up a letter. You're suspended pending investigation. What? I said, stunned. Why? He slid the letter forward. Anonymous complaint. Says you threatened a civilian with a firearm. Multiple witnesses. My jaw dropped. That's insane. I've never... He raised a hand. Save it. There's even a photo attached. He turned the page, and there it was. A blurry image of me standing on Karen's porch, phone in hand, arguing. But the photo was cropped, manipulated. It looked like I was holding a gun. She sent this, I muttered. Karen sent this. My boss didn't answer. Just looked at me with something close to pity. Leave your badge and firearm here, he said quietly. The sound of my badge hitting his desk was like a gunshot. By the time I got home, my hands were shaking. Karen was in her yard, trimming hedges, pretending not to notice me. I walked straight toward her. You think you've won? She turned, calm as ever. Won what, dear? My life isn't a game. Oh, but it is, she said sweetly. And you're losing. Then she leaned closer, whispering, You should have stayed in your lane, Agent. I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to react. This isn't over, she smiled. Oh, I know. And for the first time I saw something in her eyes. Not arrogance, but pure enjoyment. She loved the chaos. That night I sat in my dark living room staring at the blank wall where my FBI plaque used to hang. My phone buzzed again, a message from Alvarez. Got new intel. That company's laundering HOA funds. Meet tomorrow, quietly. Finally, a crack in the wall. Maybe even a way out. But deep down, I knew something. Karen wasn't done with me yet. The next morning felt heavier than any other. Rain fell in thin, steady sheets, turning my street into a gray watercolor of silence. I sat in my car for a long time, engine off, just listening to the patter against the windshield. My badge was gone, my authority stripped. But the training, that never left. If I couldn't fight as an FBI agent, I'd fight as me. At 9 a.m., I drove to meet Alvarez. We chose a forgotten diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where the jukebox never worked and the waitress knew when to leave you alone. He was already there. Files spread across the table like a crime scene map. "Morning," he said, eyes serious. "Morning," I muttered, sliding into the booth. "Tell me you've got something." He pushed a folder toward me. Inside were bank statements, shell company registrations, and a neat web of accounts, all leading back to one name, Lydia Holbrook, LLC. "Your hunch was right," Alvarez said. "Karen's sister runs the front company. They've been siphoning HOA dues into fake maintenance invoices, funneling cash through 3 states. We're talking serious fraud." I flipped through the documents, my pulse quickening. "If this connects back to Karen directly, we can bury her." Alvarez lowered his voice. "That's where it gets tricky. Lydia's got a sealed contract with a federal grant program, something about community safety initiatives. Someone high up's protecting her." I frowned. "Her uncle," he nodded grimly. "Deputy Director Garrett, the same man who'd built my entire division's ethics policy." That night, I started my own surveillance again. Karen's house lit up around 8 p.m. Guests arriving, same black SUVs, same fake badges glinting under the porch light. I crept across the street. Staying in the shadows behind Mrs. Lang's hedges, phone camera rolling. Through Karen's kitchen window, I caught sight of a laptop, spreadsheet open, labeled Security Contributions. Each name on the list had a dollar amount next to it. 25 houses. Thousands in cash. I zoomed in, catching every frame. That was evidence strong enough for a warrant, but when I turned to leave, a flashlight beam swept across my face. "Freeze!" It wasn't Alvarez. It wasn't a cop. It was one of Karen's fake officers, the tall one with the plastic badge. He grinned. "Evening agent, or should I say ex-agent?" I stepped slowly into the light. "You're trespassing," he shrugged. "Neighborhood watch. You look suspicious." "Funny," I said. "So do you." He took a step closer. "You don't get it, do you? You're done. Karen runs this street now. People listen to her." "People like you?" He chuckled. "People who get paid to keep quiet." I spotted the handle of a taser on his belt, cheap model, non-standard issue. If he moved, I'd have to act fast. Before he could say another word, a car turned the corner, headlights washing over us. He flinched, and that was my opening. I shoved past him, sprinting toward my house. He yelled, "You'll regret that!" But I was already through my front door, bolting it shut. My hands trembled as I sent the video to Alvarez. Within minutes, his reply came, "That's enough. I'm getting a warrant in the morning. Don't do anything stupid tonight." But as I looked out the window, I saw Karen standing in her yard again, umbrella in hand, calm smile on her lips. She mouthed the words, "Too late." By dawn, everything moved fast. Alvarez called. "We've got the warrant. Meet me at the station." When I arrived, he looked charged, ready. We hit both houses, Karen's and her sister's office. "You're staying outside the line. You're a witness now, not active." I nodded. The convoy rolled into my neighborhood at sunrise. 3 black and whites, 2 unmarked SUVs. Doors slammed, boots hit pavement, and the quiet suburb exploded into flashing red and blue. Karen stepped onto her porch in a robe, pretending to be confused. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. Alvarez flashed his badge. "Karen Garrett, we have a warrant to search your property in connection with fraudulent activity and impersonation of law enforcement." Her eyes widened just slightly before she caught herself. "This is outrageous," she hissed. "Save it for the judge," Alvarez said. They moved inside, and I stood at the curb watching the empire crumble. Minutes later, they brought out boxes of files, fake IDs, cash envelopes, even uniforms labeled HOA Security Division. My chest tightened, not with anger this time, but relief. But then Alvarez came out, face pale. "We've got a problem." "What?" I asked. "The laptop's gone." "And so is the financial drive?" Karen's smile returned instantly. "See? Nothing to hide." That's when I realized she'd known about the raid all along. Someone had tipped her off. That same afternoon, Alvarez called me into the precinct. He closed the blinds before speaking. "You're not going to like this," he said. "Internal Affairs intercepted our warrant data. Someone upstairs flagged it as unauthorized. They're freezing the investigation." "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. Deputy Director Garrett himself. My stomach twisted. "He's protecting his niece. Looks that way. But I can't touch him, not without federal clearance." I stared out the window at the rain streaking down the glass. "Then I'll go round him." He frowned. "How?" "By going higher." I pulled out my phone and scrolled to an encrypted number. The personal contact of a retired assistant director who'd once mentored me. The kind of man who still had friends in high places. I typed a single message. "Need to expose internal corruption. Urgent." His reply came a few seconds later. "Meet me. Tonight. Don't use the main roads." That evening, I left town under a sky streaked with lightning. The meeting spot was a derelict rest stop off Route 19. Halfway there, headlights appeared in my rearview mirror. Too close, too steady. I slowed, they slowed, then they accelerated. My pulse spiked. I jerked the wheel, taking a side road through the woods, tires spitting gravel. The pursuing car followed. Black sedan, same tinted glass. I gunned the engine, swerving between trees until the road ended at an old ranger station. I leapt out, sprinted into the dark, and crouched behind a rotting fence. The sedan stopped. Doors opened. Two figures stepped out, both wearing the fake HOA uniforms. "Agent Carter!" one shouted into the night. "Stop running and we'll make it easy." I didn't answer. I circled behind them quietly, the rain masking my steps. When one of them turned, I lunged, knocking him off balance and grabbing his radio. "This isn't over!" The other yelled, firing a taser that missed by inches. I smashed the radio against a tree, sparks flaring, then bolted through the woods toward the distant hum of a highway. When I finally reached my contact's car, drenched and shaking, he was waiting with a calm nod. "You weren't followed?" he asked. "Not anymore," I said, breathless. He started the engine. "Good, because it's time we make this official. By midnight, I'd handed over every shred of evidence, videos, flyers, recordings to my contact, who promised to take it directly to the Inspector General's office. "This goes beyond one neighborhood," he said. "We're talking systemic abuse of authority under a federal grant. If this checks out, your name gets cleared and hers gets buried." I nodded, exhausted but finally hopeful. Outside, thunder rolled. The first light of dawn was creeping over the horizon. But as we drove back toward town, my phone buzzed with a new message. No number, just a single line. "You think you've won, Agent? Check your house." My blood ran cold. I looked up at the road ahead. In the distance, smoke was rising from the direction of my street. When I reached my street, The night sky was a sheet of red and gray. Flames licked out of my living room windows, the sound of cracking wood mixing with the wail of sirens. Neighbors stood in clusters whispering. Some looked scared. Others looked relieved, like the neighborhood's favorite villain had finally been erased. My home, my evidence, was burning. I pushed through the crowd, shouting, "Anyone inside?" A firefighter grabbed my arm. Too late. Place went up fast. "You live here?" I nodded, speechless. He frowned. Gas line was cut. Looks deliberate. That single word, deliberate, hit harder than the smoke. Karen had made her next move. By morning, the fire was out and my house was a black shell. The agents who arrived to document the damage weren't my colleagues. They were internal affairs observers, scribbling notes and avoiding my eyes. One of them, a young woman with a stiff expression, muttered, "Funny coincidence, huh? Evidence gone the day after your suspension." I didn't answer. I just stared at the charred remains of my desk, the same spot where I'd kept the HOA files, recordings, and flash drives. Everything I'd built was gone. When Alvarez arrived, his face said everything. "She's cleaning up loose ends," he whispered. "But we're not done. The Inspector General's office opened a sealed review this morning. Your contact delivered the packet." A small spark of hope flared. "So there's still a chance," he nodded. "Yeah, but we'll need new proof, something undeniable." That night I returned to the ruins with a flashlight. Rain tapped against the soot-stained walls as I moved through what used to be my office. I knew Karen. She thought in straight lines. If she believed she'd destroyed my records, she wouldn't look for backups. I pried open the half-melted vent behind my desk. Inside, coated in ash but intact, was a small black flash drive. The mirror copy, the one I'd made weeks earlier, almost out of paranoia. My hands shook as I pocketed it. "Not today, Karen," I called Alvarez. "Meet me at your station in 30 minutes. I've got something. The setup." When I pulled into the parking lot, everything felt wrong. Too quiet, too empty. The lights in the precinct lobby were on, but the front desk was deserted. I hesitated, then stepped inside. "Alvarez." Silence. Then a voice from behind. "He's busy." Karen. She stepped out of the shadows wearing a crisp blazer, every trace of her suburban disguise gone. Two men in suits flanked her, real agents armed, badges out. "Agent Carter," she said smoothly. "Or should I say former agent? You've caused quite the mess." I clenched my jaw. "You have no jurisdiction here." "Oh, but I do," she said, smiling. "You see, my uncle fast-tracked a review. You're under investigation for evidence tampering and obstruction." I laughed bitterly. "You set the fire." She tilted her head. "Prove it." One of the agents stepped forward. "Sir, please hand over the device in your pocket." I met Karen's eyes. "You want it?" "Come get it!" I bolted through the rear corridor. Shouts followed, boots pounding on tile. I hit the emergency exit, shoved the bar, and ran into the rain-soaked alley behind the station. Headlights flared. A black SUV blocked the street. I ducked behind a dumpster, water splashing as I landed hard. Karen's voice echoed faintly through the rain. "You can't outrun the system, Carter." "I am the system." Heart hammering, I pulled out my phone and the flash drive. The emergency cloud link I'd set up months ago blinked weakly. 1 bar of service. I attached the drive, whispered a prayer, and hit upload. Progress, 3%. The signal dipped. I crouched lower, shielding the phone from the rain. 5%. 10%. Karen's agents were moving through the alley now, flashlights slicing the dark. One beam swept inches from my face. I held my breath, 50%. 20. 33. A thunderclap masked the buzz of an incoming call. Alvarez. I answered with a whisper. I've got the proof, but I'm cornered. Stay put, he said. Units are en route. 40%. A voice barked, There! Bullets tore through the dumpster. Sparks flew. I ducked, clutching the phone as the progress bar crawled. 60%, 74%, 91. Then, upload complete. A soft ping that felt like salvation. The file was safe in the Inspector General's cloud drive. I exhaled shakily. Game over. Moments later, real sirens howled. Blue lights filled the alley as police cars boxed in the SUV. Alvarez jumped out of the lead car, gun drawn. Hands where I can see 'em? Karen froze mid-step, rain dripping off her perfect hair. Her smile vanished for the first time. You can't touch me, she spat. My uncle, already in custody, Alvarez cut in. Federal corruption, obstruction, and fraud. The Inspector General got your sister's transactions 15 minutes ago. Her expression cracked. That's impossible. I stood, soaked, bruised, but steady. Nothing's impossible when you back up your evidence. She glared at me. You think this makes you a hero? No, I said quietly. It just makes me free. Alvarez's team cuffed her as the rain finally slowed to a drizzle. The flashing lights reflected off the puddles like broken glass, a fitting end to her illusion of power. Weeks later, the Bureau cleared my name completely. Karen's empire, the fake HOA, the shell companies, the family network, collapsed in public scandal. Her uncle resigned in disgrace. Lydia faced federal charges for fraud and money laundering. And the real HOA? Reinstated, humbled, grateful. When I walked down my street again, kids played basketball, dogs barked, and no one wore a badge that wasn't real. Tamara waved from her porch. Glad to see you back, Agent, I smiled. Just Carter's fine. At night sometimes I still heard echoes of sirens, the ghosts of that chaos. But the quiet afterward, it was worth every scar. The neighborhood felt different now. No fake patrols, no clipped notes on doors or warning flyers fluttering down the street. Just the normal rhythm of sprinklers, mail trucks, and laughter. The quiet suburban heartbeat I'd forgotten existed. It had been 3 months since Karen's arrest, and yet her shadow still lingered. Every time a car slowed near my house, I caught myself glancing out the window. Every unfamiliar face made my pulse quicken. It wasn't paranoia, just memory refusing to fade. The Bureau reinstated me, but things weren't the same there either. Some colleagues treated me like a survivor. Others, like a cautionary tale. They didn't know which version of me to believe. The man who fought a corrupt system, or the one who let a suburban feud turn into a federal incident. I didn't care. The truth was enough. On a warm Friday afternoon, I sat on my rebuilt porch with Tamara. She brought lemonade the way she used to before the storm. For the first time in ages, her smile reached her eyes. You ever think she'll come back? She asked softly. I shook my head. Karen? She's got 20 years of thinking to do. Federal time. No shortcuts. Tamara looked relieved, but also sad. She wasn't always like that, you know. She used to bake cookies for everyone. Then she got on the HOA board and... Power changes people, I said. Even small power. She nodded, staring at the quiet street. Do you ever regret moving here? I thought about that. About the nights I spent watching headlights, the mornings filled with rumors, the day my house turned to ashes. Then I looked at the freshly painted homes, the waving kids, the sound of someone mowing a lawn, all the little things Karen tried to own. No, I said finally. I regret trusting the wrong people, but I don't regret standing up to them, Tamara smiled. Good answer. 2 weeks later, I received a letter. No return address, just my name in block letters. Inside, a single sheet of paper. You can burn a house, Carter, but you can't burn the truth. See you soon. Kay! My stomach tightened. The envelope was postmarked 2 days earlier, from a federal detention center. I showed it to Alvarez later that night. He frowned, scanning the note. Standard scare tactic, he said. She's isolated, powerless. Probably wrote this before they transferred her to Nevada. I tried to laugh it off, but the chill lingered. Months passed. The world moved on. A new HOA board took over, one that actually cared about the residents. They invited me to their first meeting, mostly to thank me, but partly to make sure I wasn't still investigating them. I went, sat quietly in the back, and watched as real order replaced Karen's chaos. The meeting ended with polite applause and a sense of calm. As I stepped outside, Alvarez was waiting by his cruiser. Figured I'd drop by, he said. No more fake badges tonight? I grinned. Not unless someone starts selling them on Etsy, he chuckled, then grew serious. You did good, Carter. Most people would have walked away. I tried, I said, but some fires don't stop until you fight back. He nodded, started his car, and drove off into the quiet night. Back home, I stood on my porch again, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. A couple laughed as they strolled past my gate. Normal life, fragile, beautiful, real. I thought about everything that had happened. How one woman's obsession with control turned an entire community into pawns. How easily people followed authority that merely looked official. And how close I'd come to losing everything because I underestimated what fear can do. Truth is, evil doesn't always wear a mask or carry a gun. Sometimes it wears pearls and calls itself president of the HOA. I smiled faintly. Then I went inside, closed the door, and finally slept.